It's one of the most beautiful beginnings in music, in the history of music.
Also für mich ist es die größte Sinfonie von Brahms.
It's just so, it seems like this music has been there forever. And even when we stop playing, it's still there. I actually have a personal connection to this piece because it was definitely the first symphony of Brahms that I ever studied. And I wonder whether he knew this was his last symphony when he was writing it. Welcome to another episode of Música Maestra. My name is Alondra de la Parra and I'm here in Tutzing, Bavaria with the Munich Symphony, and today is the time for the fourth symphony of Brahms, the E minor symphony. The symphony that starts in minor and ends in minor. Brahms, with this last symphony, decides to stay in this heavy and tragic tone.
Sehr simpel. Und dann aufsteigend. Und dann ist er hier angekommen. Und das ist aber auch wieder so fortschrittlich, diese Struktur. Und das ist eben auch so zukunftsweisend. Das ist für mich schon Alban Berg. Yes. Diese 12-Ton-Reihe eigentlich.
Yeah. So after this first movement, this beautiful movement, then he starts his second movement with this chant that could be the baritone or the tenor in the church, that is, or an organ sound, where different octaves and layers of the same chant are added from the horn to the woodwinds. It makes you feel like you could be in an older time, in a Phrygian mode, which is a mode where you don't really know where the ground is. And then from this beginning of the chant, the clarinets come in and then they tell you, no, it's actually going to be E major. And that change, that shift in color and that shift in place is, I think, one of the most genius moments that I've ever experienced in Brahms. Be soft to the pizzicato, just touch it.
I love the beginning of the second movement. You know, we have the pizzicato in the string section.
Yes.
And for me, it's a really special sound, a bit like a prayer.
Yes.
You know, like if a person screams, sometimes you're not listening, you know, if a screamer. But if someone is talking really quiet, then you start listening. And this is kind of this place, it's really intense. I really love this place where the pizzicato stays by itself.
Yes.
When we play. This is a really special bar for me. I don't know.
I love that.
You understand?
Yes. He continues with this mournful, nostalgic theme in the clarinets that develops from part to part in a very chamber-like quality that is so unique and beautiful. And he's able to develop theme after theme from the most basic cell to the most gorgeous variations and the structure. He was such an architect, but at the same time, with good architecture, when you're in it, you don't see the architecture, you experience the feeling of the emotions. It's incredible. That's my favorite moment, I think. And then we get the happy, cheerful, as if he wanted to give the audience the chance to be happy and have a sort of finale feeling.
Ist es ein Scherzo? Schon. Giocoso.
It's giocoso. It's like a scherzo.
Dazu, Giocoso,
it's a scherzo in 2, but usually scherzos are more in 3. Yeah. But it's a scherzo, because it's funny. He decides to put the big fiesta in the 3rd movement. He knew he wasn't going to end up and let's say cheerful and hopeful and asking for a big applause with his last movement. He had clearly made that plan. And so he decides to put it in the 3rd movement in a sort of scherzo manner, with lots of humor and with this, really joyful and maybe sometimes could be even sarcastic tone, where he's going from loud to soft, from winds to strings, from all of the greatest contrasts of the color of the orchestra.
Manche sagen, es sei so gezwungene, also eine gewisse gewaltsame Fröhlichkeit, aber Sie würden sagen, es ist wirklich glücklich.
It's very rhythmic and I love that. And then the triangle instruments.
Ja.
Bing! It's so funny. I think the last movement is this one theme, no? Very simple chorale line that is searching upward towards God and then falls. An ascending scale, basically, with chromatism, which he loved so much. decides to make 30 different variations with this theme, and every variation has its own world. That's why it cannot be performed in the same tempo, because each variation demands different things from the orchestra. So it's really fun to play because you have to change moods, characters, sounds, articulation within less than a minute as we go along in the last movement, which we call a pizzicato, because the theme comes from the bass and it continues developing.
Ja, und wir haben eben dieses Vorbild von der Bach-Kantate, die habe ich auch kurz mal hier, diese Kantate, Bachwerkverzeichnis 150, der Text, also der Titel der Kantate, Nach dir, Herr, verlanget mich. Und der letzte Satz, oder die Chaconne als 7. Satz der Kantate lautet, meine Tage in den Leiden endet Gott. Und jetzt kommt es, was, glaube ich, der Brahms nicht umgesetzt hat, dennoch zu Freuden. Ja. Und bei Brahms bleibt eigentlich dieses Traurige.
What do you think it means to you? What is it? Where are we when you play that?
Well, it's very special for us flutists, because it's not very difficult in a technical way of playing, but you have almost the whole range of notes you play. You go up, you rise up as like a prayer, and kind of desperation when we reach the top note, and then it goes down, and just for me it's kind of relaxing and anticipating that there will be something good. I just try to dive into these E major chords which are following, and this is such a relief after the emotional turmoil you are just running through.
The gorgeous flute solo that makes me feel really lonely, and I think Brahms liked and was able to communicate his loneliness. He was always alone, he never married, he loved coming to places like this, to be in private and be alone, to connect to his creative forces, and this solo with the flute to me is really seeing through the soul of Johannes Brahms. That's how I see it. And in the end, you see, there's always a sign. Perhaps he agrees. Of course, the ending, it's not, it's tormentorous, yeah.
Fatalistisch.
It's fatalistic.
Das Schicksal hat gesprochen. Und ist kein Trost am Schluss eigentlich.
So the end is not let's have a big applause and bring the house down to sort of end. It's completely opposite. This is life. Life is not easy, and we're here, we're human. We cannot reach God. even if we want to.